Okay. My connection on Facebook, y'all. Think we're good now. Think I'm good. Okay. I think the connection on Facebook is better. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. Wrong planner. All right, beautiful people. It is Friday the 13th, May 13th, 2022, day 107 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1125. Today we're reading Oahspe, and we're picking back up on page. Hold on, we start a new jank today. So, the Book of Sue on page 84. I had to look because it jumps around. Page 84. Okay. Page 84. Oh.
Did you read that first one?
I didn't. Page 84, and then we're gonna pick up in the meditation book where we left off at yesterday. Y'all will it on page 119. All right, beautiful people. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Thank you, Father, for another day. Be with us as we continue to learn on a daily basis. And help us to enrich, to uproot the lies, even if they've pervaded and it's a part of our circle. Give us the strength to stand up for the truth and walk in it. Alazar Shalom. Auntie. Grand Rising. All right, y'all. The Book of Sue, page 87. All right. So we're starting at the top. Remember, this is the heavenly account. Okay. Book of Sue, son of Jehovah, being the second cycle after the flood. Okay. Jehovah spake in the gardens of Atahavia, precinct of Su, Orion chief, in the Etherian firmament, saying, Su, my son, what of the red star, the far off earth? Behold, her harvests are blighted. She is become barren and imparting immortal souls to my unending realms. Su heard the voice, and he said, in thy name, O Jehovah, will I summon my gods of Hoyt and Izraka. Swift messengers departed, and Su, quick perceiving, God of two worlds in the Etherian Semar, foresaw the importance of the coming red star. He said, this with my gods of Hoyt and Izaraka, who will come in swift speed, shall be the second deliverance. Then came Li Wing, god of Hoyt, and presently Sivian, goddess of Izaraka, and they stood before Jehovah's throne. Su said, Jehovah hath spoken. Behold, the red star bringeth forth nor sons nor daughters more to Jehovah's realms. Remember, the red star is the earth. Jehovah hath spoken. Behold, the red star bringeth forth nor sons nor daughters more to Jehovah's realms. She is weak, unstrung, and out of tune, and cometh this way. And I said, in thy power and wisdom, O Jehovah, will I visit the red star. 6 years will I stand on her soil and course her heavens, and such potency give to her confused gods and lords, as will make 1,000 millions sing for joy. To accompany me, I have called you. Behold, I have charts and maps of her heaven and her corporal parts, and a history of her as yet young adventures in the field of worlds. Then spake Li Wing and Sivian, saying, to do Jehovah's will and thine, behold, we are come to thee. Give us to fulfill whatsoever thou wilt. To the swift messengers, Su said, ye have heard. Go proclaim throughout my Etherian worlds my will, and summon up from Ithivius 100 million skilled volunteers. When the red star shall cross the wing of Izraka, we will go forth in power and land on her troubled parts in a sea of golden light. Adri Shalom. Zoe Betwabu. Chapter 2, page 85 at the top. Book of Su. In the Ariniska of Porton of the Etherian worlds and division of Hort and Izraka, flew the call of gods for volunteers, than which a more welcome sound is not heard in high heaven to do Jehovah's will. And after than, it has a reference number 1, and it says, the Lord said, according to the cycles, some 21 and 20,000 years. And with the voice and call, there rose up hosts from every quarter and from every subdivision, till the complement stood ready for the great work. And yet so vast were the fields and arcs of Izraka that the 100 million chosen were as but a fraction compared to those left uncalled. Coming near the throne of Su in Aoit, the 100 million formed in squares and stars, and the chosen God took his place to the head and front, looking to the low horizon where rose the red star, the sick earth. And now the builders who had measured the elements lying in the route toward the earth formed their crescent ship of fire and equipped it, and with mantles and curtains and banners, created it a vessel of beauty and ornament as well as service. Hardly was the ship completed when Jehovah's light encompassed it about on all sides, so that which was beautiful before was now illuminated and sparkling and bright as a sun and rich in golden colors, for of such kind was the earth of the heavens hereabout created. When Su entered the ship, the voice of Jehovah came, saying, another cycle came and is gone on the earth and her heaven, but still they fall to barrenness ere the succeeding dawn. Go now, O Su, my son, and a wider range give to the tetracts of both angels and mortals. Give a greater scope to tyrants, kings, and queens on earth, and greater to the self gods and self lords and Hada and more responsibility. Then all hands entered the Etherian ship, singing and rejoicing, observed by countless millions come to wish them a haven of joy on their 6 years' visit to the corporal earth. Su said, in thy name, O Jehovah, and by virtue of thy power in me vested, my host shall forth at my command. My host shall forth at my command. Cut loose, ye gods, and thou, O ship of heaven born, to the red star, the earth be gone. And Su stretched forth his hands and waved them, and lo, the mighty ship of heaven turned on its axis, cutting loose from the high firmament. And it turned with its great curtains and banners, sailing gracefully and swiftly through the blue ether. The music of the Isinars swelled and rolled along on the spheres of many worlds, unseen to mortals, where dwell countless millions of spectators viewing the marvelous speed and power and brilliant colors of the great ship. Faster and faster she sped on, till nearing Chinvant, which now cut sharp in the fields and forests of Izraka, over which was potent the name of Su, the companion god and chiefest friend of Af, Orion chief, son of Jehovah. When the ship came to the bridge and halted to take in the plan of the whirling earth, Su said, alight, ye gods. And at once, as high as the moon and bright as the sun, the illumined ship stood to overawe the self gods and warrior kings and murderers of the earthborn, whose plentiful souls in chaos polluted heaven. For 3 days and nights, Su held his starship to the wonderful task of mastering the marvelous scene. Something I've noticed through here up until this point, whenever they're about to do a graduation, um, or a resurrection or whatever, there's always a period of 3 days and nights. Um, a time of like rejoicing, or where they stop and pause, which we also see that in the scriptures. But in the scripture, it was JC going down to the grave for 3 days and nights, right? Okay. I just thought, it interesting. I'm holding that thought. When the ship came to the bridge and halted to take in the plan of the whirling earth, Su said, a light, ye gods. And at once, as high as the moon and bright as the sun, the illumined ship stood to overawe the self gods and warrior kings and murderers of the earth born, whose plentiful souls in chaos polluted heaven. For 3 days and nights, Su held his starship to the wonderful task of mastering by the marvelous scene. And then slowly he entered the vortex of the earth, but held his course, nor with the earth and her heaven, for he desired that both corporeans and atmospherians should witness the coming power. So slowly he came, but 50,000 miles a day, that when the ship neared its disorganized horrid, the self gods and self lords fled and left their well supplied kingdoms desolate, and down to the earth rushed in thousands, and with their hosts in millions, to hide or safely stow themselves from agony's just hate. But the true God and Lords stood firm in their depleted kingdoms, fearing naught, but in faith that this Ethereal ship was Jehovah's answer to the long, and by their pillars of fire still standing, great Su knew where to land in the lower heaven for safe anchorage. So to Horeb he came slowly and toward the throne of God. And when he neared the place, his Essenars chanted and the trumpeters played, the sound of which music came to the ears of gods and his host. And they were the hymns of more than 1,000 years ago. Uncle J.B. Grand Rising. And God and his hosts sent up rockets and displayed the three primary colors, the sign of Jehovah's name, and God's Essenars joined in chanting the host above. Presently, the ship of fire was at the place of landing, and Su, Jehovah's son, cast out a ladder and descended with his host, the 100 million angels, led by Gusi, Tivi, yeah, Marshalless of the throne of Su in Israel. Su said, Hail, O God of heaven and earth, in Jehovah's name, I come in power and wisdom. And God answered, Glory be to thee, O Jehovah, that thy son hath come so far to bless thy bewildered kingdom. Then they saluted with the signs of the sixth resurrection, whereupon God said, In the name of the great Spirit, come thou and honor my throne. So Su went forward, and they greeted by shaking hands, and Su ascended and sat on the throne, saying, Keep thy place, O God, for I am not come to displace thee or thy host of Jehovah, but to build up for his glory. Be seated, therefore, for I feel the light of the Father descending upon my head. Presently, the all light enveloped Su, and the Father's voice spake through him, saying, Hear the words of thy Creator, my Son, and rejoice, because I have not forgotten thee and thy people. Behold, this is the hour of thy redemption from the trials of tetracts, which are run abroad in my dominion. Robin, Ashai is grand rising, beautiful rising, shalom. Behold, this is the hour of thy redemption from the trials of tetracts, which are run abroad in my dominions. Was it not worse than this in the olden time? And I came with my host and delivered them. I created man in darkness and gave him no judgment, that the creation of his own thoughts might be for his own glory forever. But instead of beautifying his thoughts, he hearkened to tetracts and clothed himself in clouds. The heaven I build for him, he diggeth to pieces, and then buildeth his own, but only to be displeased and turbulent. Neither would he content himself with providing with his own hands, but searches out my most dutiful sons and daughters, making slaves of them for his own exaltation. Behold, I have aforetime sent my sons and daughters to search out these traitors and self gods, declaring unto them that only by forsaking evil and practicing righteousness could they attain to my exalted kingdom. Their evil places have I cast down and rebuilt in honor and glory, that their own judgment might determine that virtue and good works are the sure foundation for happiness that will endure forever. But when I have raised them up in one cycle and made the lower heaven a paradise, alas, my Etherians have been gone away for a little while when the tetracts take root and grow and turn all things upside down. But now will I build them up in a new way. Yea, I will appropriate the evil of their inventions to their own good in a way they dream not. The false gods and false lords shall be arrested and brought before this judgment seat, and I will judge them by their own behavior and desires. Neither will I torment them nor abridge their happiness. Send, therefore, my son, thy marshals into the hidden places of these gods and lords, and say to them, thus saith the host of heaven, come, my son, and inherit a kingdom in Hada in thy own way, for lo, there is room for all. But that thou art not left behind, come quickly to Horeb. And they will come, hoping to embellish themselves in the old manner. But my light shall come in due time in my own way. The voice ceased. What a good way to trick them into doing what's right. He said, "Come on over here and inherit a kingdom." From what I understand, this particular kingdom, as is taught by Christianity, would be hell, right? But hell is not really what Christianity teaches it to be, right? Because everything that we see is evil from what we understand as we've been growing, that nothing stays evil forever, right? Even if your spirit dies in this realm and it is evil to the core, to the day it takes its last corporal breath, somewhere along that path after you leave this realm, you will go to a place that'll help purge you of all those evil desires until you come out as pure as gold, right? Okay, let me read that again. Verse 18, Shayla, hey girl, hey, great rising. But now I will build them up in a new way. Yea, I will appropriate the evil of their inventions to their own good in a way they dreamed not of. The false gods and false lords shall be arrested and brought before this judgment seat, and I will judge them by their own behavior and desires. Neither will I torment them nor abridge their happiness. Send therefore, my son, thy marshals into the hidden places of these gods and lords, and say to them, thus saith the host of heaven, come, my son, and inherit a kingdom in Hada, or Christianity, it will be hell, right? In Hada, in thy own way, for lo, there is room for all. But that thou art not left behind, come quickly to Horeb, and they will come, hoping to embellish themselves in the old manner. But my light shall come in due time in my own way. The voice ceased, but Su spake of his own account, saying, what Jehovah hath ordered, do ye. So marshals and priests were sent in all directions in atmosphere to gather the false gods and false lords who had deserted their dominions in fear of the light of Su's Etherian ship. And after many days, the false ones were brought to Horeb, and there were of them 7,000 lords and gods. Now, when they were before Su, Jehovah's son, and arranged so that they all could hear and see, even the whole council beside, the light gathered around about the throne, and Su addressed them, saying, hear me, O men and women. I have sent for you, and ye are here. In this I am pleased. Know then that what I speak shall be in love and tenderness. Ye have deserted Jehovah's kingdoms, and it must be because it pleased you better than to remain. Is this not true? And ye also deserted your own false kingdoms? For a little while they consulted together, and then answered, saying, Nay, it pleased us not to desert our own kingdoms, but we were afraid. Su said, Who think ye I am? They answered, A god from some far off world. But where it lieth, we know not. We desire to know who thou art. Su said, I am but a man. Fear me not. But since ye feared and so deserted your kingdoms, does it not prove that ye are not the all highest? And do ye not perceive that because ye had no all highest, ye were divided and inharmonious? Hear then that which I say, and consider my words. I want not your kingdoms nor anything ye have, but that harmony may reign in heaven. I will give every one of you more than ye had, and add power unto ye also. Since ye behold, I am come to Horeb, the throne of the ancients, perceive ye not that whatsoever accordeth with me is of my power also? And after whatsoever, it has reference number 2, and it just says whosoever. Up here it says whatsoever. Down here before in the previous version, it said whosoever. Okay. Since ye behold, I am come to Horeb, the throne of the ancients, perceive ye not that whatsoever accordeth with me is of my power also? Take then your kingdoms and be gods and goddesses, as ye assumed before, and I will anoint ye and make ye as part and parcel of one united whole. Again they counseled together and then answered, Why shall we take our kingdoms? Our slaves have deserted us. Our kingdoms are pillaged of all their value. Yea, our slaves have become wandering spirits, and our returned to the earth and are not so that the people of earth are aroused because of miracles and wonders occurring on earth. Su said, What can ye say to these wandering spirits that will induce them to come up away from the mortals? To which they answered, If we promise them provender and clothes and plenty of rest, they will come. But when we put them to labor, they will run away, having tasted of liberty. Su said, How then made ye slaves of them in the first place? To which they answered, We took them in a day their mortal bodies died. Then they never saw nor knew any other place in heaven, so we appropriated them to our service dutifully. Su said, Know then, this is my conclusion. First, that ye shall be made as sub gods to one confederacy, and your kingdoms shall be fair to look upon and well supplied with all things needful. Behold, there are on earth with the barbarians hosts of familiars and feudals. Whoever then of you will go down to the earth and bring them away to Horeb shall have them for his slaves. And whosoever bringeth the greatest number, to him will I award the greatest kingdom. And if it be that ye can find emissaries to work for you, in bringing feudals and familiars away from the barbarians, then shall such labor be accounted to your credit. Ain't this a way? This is a great way to get all them wandering spirits away from the earth or this particular section of the earth, right? And they're gonna do it real quick too, because they're fighting to get a kingdom. But you're accomplishing, you killing two birds with one stone here. Listen, and if it be that ye can find emissaries to work for you in bringing feudals and familiars away from the barbarians, then shall such labor be accounted to your credit. And ye shall station around about the corporal cities certain angels whose labor shall be to receive newborn spirits on birth blankets and bring them to your kingdoms also, for they shall be your slaves. After that manner spake Su, and the false gods and goddesses were highly pleased, and they divided themselves into certain districts over mortals and for the lower heaven, and were at once sent off to labor in their own way, and they were named sub gods. Su said, These sub gods have much weight with the barbarians, because they advise them in war. But behold, it shall come to pass, when the sub gods have robbed the barbarians of their familiar spirits, the Ehim priests will have a greater weight than them. I'm sorry. The Ehim priests will have a greater weight with them, and the sub gods will desire to find favor in my sight, and so teach their slaves, the which will cause them to emancipate themselves in time to come. Where we at? 25 minutes? Okay, we're gonna read chapter 3. Oh yeah, we should finish chapter 3 in 5 minutes. Jehovah spake through Sue, saying, Mine is a strong government and everlasting. Hearken to the wisdom of your Creator, O my sons and daughters, wherein I have not given liberty to all people. I'm sorry, that was a question. Wherein have I not given liberty to all people? He that doeth a right, wherein is he not free? He that doeth a wrong, wherein hath he liberty? Whoever endeavoureth to surpass himself, have I not shown him his limit? Hold on. Whoever endeavoureth to surpass himself, have I not shown him his limit? I created man at zero, but for him to add unto himself forever. Liberty I gave him to add only that which perfecteth his own soul. Wherefore, if he eat poison, it taketh from him his body which I gave. Herein I made a boundary, both on earth and in heaven, which is to say, inasmuch as man accumulateth virtue, wisdom, patience, love, truth, and pure words, he is free, because in so doing he followeth me in my works. But he that seeketh to glorify himself in his possessions bindeth himself, because he is unlike me, for I gave all, and thus made the universe. Two states, therefore, have I created open to all men, both on earth and in atmosphere, which are liberty and bondage. And man I made to choose that which he will, but that he might not err. Behold, I send my emancipated angels to explain these things beforehand. Even so are governments ordained by my holy ones, wherein ye may judge whether a government be of me or against me. For if I give liberty to all righteous works, and for the promotion of knowledge, providing teachers to the extent of the demand, it is of me. But if the government maketh of itself a self, for which it aggrandizement is at the expense of my children's liberty, then it is against me. For I have not created a people to be today as were their forefathers, but provided them with perpetual growth in wisdom and virtue, wherefore the rising generations shall rebel against that which was well and good for their forefathers. All my governments understand this, whether on earth or in heaven. Whatever government accepteth not this rule shall go down to destruction. For as I have hedged man about with sentinels such as pestilence, poverty, and hunger, in order to awaken him to knowledge and industry, so have I hedged in all governments under the sun with sentinels such as rebellion and assassinations and war and bankruptcy. As pestilence proveth man disobedience to my commandments, so do rebellion and anarchy prove the disobedience of governments to the progressive spirit with which I created man. Let me read that again. Listen to this. So if you get listen, just to kind of sum it up, if you got rebellion going on in your country, that means your government is corrupt and it is against the laws of Yah. Let me read that again. That's it in its full summation. Like if there's a rebellion against you and your authority, something in authority is off. Listen, he set rebellion, war, all those things as kind of like uh, thermometers or temperature gauges to let you know how well or how not well your leadership is doing. Listen to this. Verse 5, page 89. For I have not created a people to be today as were their forefathers, but provided them with perpetual growth in wisdom and virtue. Wherefore the rising generations shall rebel against that which was well and good for their forefathers. All my governments understand this, whether on heaven, whether on earth or in heaven. Whatever government accepteth not this rule shall go down to destruction. For as I have hedged man about with sentinels, such as pestilence, poverty, and hunger, in order to awaken him to knowledge and industry. So if you got poverty, pestilence, and all that stuff going on around you, it's to awaken you that, wait a minute, something ain't right in me. I need to get industrious about my livelihood so I don't have to live in pestilence, wants, and poverty, right? That's exactly, if we sit around and do nothing, we get nothing. And we end up living in a box under the bridge, right? Same thing with governments. Listen, all my governments understand this, whether on earth or in heaven. Whatever government accepteth not this rule shall go down to destruction. For as I have hedged man about with sentinels, such as pestilence, poverty, and hunger, in order to awaken him to knowledge and industry, so have I hedged in all governments under the sun with sentinels, such as rebellion and assassinations and war and bankruptcy. As pestilence proveth man's disobedience to my commandments, so do rebellion and anarchy prove the disobedience of governments to the progressive spirit which I created man. Bruh, Yah has created us to continually go, as the church house would say, from glory to glory, or increase in wisdom and virtue as the time goes on. If the government is against that plan of Yah for our development, trying to hold us in bondage and slavery so that we don't grow and keep us blind, then there's going to be an uprising, right? And now you got people like us labeled as conspiracy theorists. We're rising up. We want the wrong to be corrected so that all men can can live peaceably, right, and continue to grow as Yah willed it to be over all the earth, right? Oh, that's so good. Okay. The self God, or and the self God is those who proclaim themselves to be God when they're not, or they put themselves in positions that they weren't authorized to be in. The self God saith, I will make a strong government by armies, and cruel masters will I bind the subjects in my dominions. And he draweth up a multitude of laws, and heapeth up books to explain the laws, and findeth judges to explain the books that explain the laws. And he said, behold, how wise I am. Behold, the great wisdom of my judges. Behold, the great learning of my books. Behold, my most perfect laws. Behold, my armies that stand behind all in hold on. Behold my armies that stand behind all and in great power. But lo, a star appeareth in heaven, and all his fabric goeth as a spider's web. For instead of choosing his creator, who is strong, he erected things that were as nothing. Hear thy creator, O my God, for through my son I bequeath a new light to the lower heaven. For as thou hast portioned to the self gods to take kingdoms, suffer them to hedge themselves about with a multitude of laws. But thou thyself shalt have no laws, save the rites and ceremonies which thou shalt adorn with music and processions. And it shall come to pass that dominions of the self gods will prosper for a season, and they will, for sake of self glory, deplete the earth people of familiar spirits and feudals. But in time after, their subjects will tire of the laws of the self gods, and hearing that thou hast no laws save rites and ceremonies, they will come to whore it of their own accord, right? Kind of like us breaking free out of the bondage of Christianity in some of the places, right? We can go over there, then find out we're under all this bondage and stuff, and even going to the Hebrew camps with my Hebrew brethren and sister, right? You get over here and you find out you got all these laws and you got us going for a little bit because we were super excited about this new found freedom, but only to find out that we were taken from one bondage to another. Then we're going to go searching for real true freedom, right? Right. And it shall come to pass that the dominion, it kind of remind me like some people, it's been a while, but it reminded me of some people who kind of come in like, who your teacher, who you send up, who's your pastor? Because you know how some people get on giving all praises to the elders of First Baptist Church in the camp of We Stupid up on the valley in the wherever. You know how they start their videos like that, right? And I think a few people from those type of camps come in, and because I don't start my videos like that, I'll give praise and honor to no man here on the earth save my husband, right? And the God that created us, right?
What?
I said, you half listen, you half sleep over there.
What?
I said, I don't give praise and honor to no man save my husband and the God that created us.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay. Wake up, baby. Well, now you come to take a seat.
I keep my boots on. I've been told y'all stay ready.
Okay. Look, so it reminded me of that, right? It's like, don't come over here with all that bondage talk. We just freshly getting out of church trying to get rid of all this crap, right? I said, no, I'm not. And that just, not to get on the people that do that, I get it. You gotta grow, right? And that's just they just happen to be where they're at the moment. And I'm just like, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing this here. We might be all kind of jacked up over here, but at least we're in search for true freedom and true wholeness and peace, right? We may run into some stumbling blocks, but we're gonna get it together because we ain't gonna stop searching for truth, right? This is a channel for truth seekers, right? We're not religious, all this other stuff. People come in trying to put me back in the box. I thought you was a Christian. I ain't never said I was a Christian. At least not in recent years. I'm breaking out anything that feels like it's handcuffs. I'm rebelling.
Yeah, you do really though.
I really do. I'm sorry, baby.
I'm gonna put you back in chains. Don't worry about it.
Look, okay.
Noose around your neck. Don't worry about it.
Look, shoot. I don't even wear necklaces for real because it's like it's too tight. And I don't even wear my bracelet all the time. And I be sometime about my watch. Anything that represents chains of bondage, no. I wish my eyesight would tighten up so I ain't gotta wear these glasses. Like, that's how serious I am about my freedom. Oh my gosh. I'm like really this free spirit. Like all the bondages, like I really don't like to wear shoes. I'm like, you know how y'all see them commercials on the movies where a little girl is running out in the field, hair bouncing, barefoot and stuff, and just that's me. That's how I really want to be. You know, or children that just take off running naked and don't care. They have no shame. They have no awareness that they're naked. That's me. That's how free I want to be. Right? Okay.
Not to say she walking around here naked.
No, I don't. Especially now when baby girls here in the room. I mean, but when she out there, hey, it's a whole different type of ball game. Okay. Who yet? Hold on. I'm over my time. Let me finish this shot. Okay. Where'd I pause? Okay. Okay, verse 9. And it shall come to pass that the dominions of the self gods will prosper for a season, and they will, for sake of self glory, deplete the earth people of familiar spirits and feudals. But in time after, their subjects will tire of the laws of the self gods, and hearing that thou hast no laws, save rites and ceremonies, they will come to whore it of their own accord. Henceforth, then, thou shalt convert the nurseries and hospitals and factories and places of education into places of delight and recreation. The voice ceased, but Sue said, behold, a time cometh in all the atmosphere in heavens when the discipline of former days must give way to something new, and such a time is now in this kingdom. It may be likened to a young child that hath been led by the hand for a long time, but now hath become strong of limb so as to walk alone. For this purpose hath the earth been bought through the fields of Izraka, and my hosts are come with music and wisdom. Hear then my decree, O God of earth, and thou shalt be the most blessed of gods. Send thy messengers into all parts of atmosphere, proclaiming a recreation of 10 days of music and dancing and marching with pageantry and feasting to be in Horeb in the first moon of Japheth. The rest leave to the Father, for he will provide us in the time thereof. And whilst the time is coming, I will go around the earth with my host in my Etherian ship. God said, I perceive thy wisdom, O Jehovah. In thy decrees am I raised up with new wisdom and power. Oh, that I could have devised a way for them before they fell so low. Su called the council and his own host from the labor to recreation for one day, and the people mingled together rejoicing. For of the Etherians with the host of Su were many who had been earthborn many thousands of years before, and their assurance of the emancipated heavens above had greater weight with the atmospherians than anything that others could say. Then Su and his host visited the earth and her heavens, and after that returned again to Horeb. And that is where we will pause at today. And just in case you forgot, the terms God and Lords, like we read in the beginning, remember, as it's referring to gods, it's talking about the multiple gods that have their turn to rule the earth, right? And it's not just the earth. We are not the only planet, or if you want to call it planet or place in this constellation. The multiple gods, some do come from this earth, and all of the gods and goddesses, they were once human as we are, but they as we are now. But as in their progression of life and growing, they've just transcended to the point where now daddy then left them in charge of the house and everybody get a chance to rule, right? So if you grew up in a house full of children, you have, if you are not the oldest, like I was the oldest, right? So as I got of age, I became of age, and I understood daddy and mom's rules of the house when they leave out to work. Now I get to an age where I can babysit my siblings, right? It's just like those who rise up, if you develop for the house for a period of time while they're gone. Same thing. So every time you see God, it's not talking about the all, the great spirit, or as they refer to the great spirit here as Jehovah. It's those, and you'll hear them say it, right? He said, I'm just a man, right? Even though they have transitioned out of the fleshly body, when they're talking and they're in communication with us, they'll let you know, I'm a man. How do we know that's true, right? If you only believe the Bible, go read the book of Daniel. They even say that in Daniel in so many words. Remember when Daniel went to go bow to the angels that were showing him the vision? They said, "Oh Daniel, do not bow to me. I am like you. I am of you, your brethren." And that, like I said before, that used to stick with me. I'm like, what? This angel said, "Don't bow to me. I'm like you." What do you mean? I am like you. I'm of your brethren. That just not until today did that. Well, not today, but in the last year did that begin to make sense. I'm like, oh snap. So all this extra information, the pieces of puzzles we get coming in, is helping us to understand the bigger picture. What we've gotten in a condensed version of the Holy Bible, it's, I can't even call it cliff notes anymore. It's like somebody, to me, and this is no disrespect to the Bible or anybody, but to me, with all the information and resources that I have now, I used to say the Bible was just a summary of the bigger story. It's not, I don't even think now it's a good summary. To me, now it seems like somebody who was too lazy to really study for the test, and then even too lazy, even if I gave you my notes, even to just read through my notes real good. It's just like, just tell me. And you just scratching down a couple different things. That's what it seems like to me now. Like I said, no disrespect to what's there, because that's why I started, right? But I read it so much, I'm like, man, something is missing. And that's where it led me to where I am at today. Right? Because I was like, something's missing from this. We are missing a whole lot of this story, right? So, but when it refers to God, or you hear gods and stuff, it's not getting off into God worship. Like even as you're coming out of the church, to teach you, because we went through that phase too, right? About the multiple gods and everything. And we realize there are multiple gods, and there were multiple gods in the Bible. Even when it says that, if, like I said, if you don't read it enough where you're familiar with the tonality, you won't pick up that even when it uses the singular term God to refer to the great spirit, you won't pick up that it's not really talking or telling you about the great spirit or the great, the God, right? The one and only. right? It's talking about somebody, one of the children who were left in charge, right? So it's just like that. As I grow and I become of age, dad and mom leave me in charge of my siblings. When I go on and move out the house, the next in line after me, we get the chance to rule, right? And so on and so forth. The same thing with the earth and all the worlds, right? Although I've only been on this one up until this point today, but and they don't just come from here, all the multiple worlds, right? They may get a chance to rule maybe their world, or they could be in charge of another world, right? Now I know, like, if you just waking up opening your eyes, you're like, what? And that sounds like blasphemy if you come out of the church, but just stick around for a little while and do your due diligence and research and stuff, and you're going to start asking some questions, right? Even if you get it wrong, if you keep on going, you will eventually line it up and get on the right path. But the point is not to stop searching, never to think you have it all or that you know it all, because you don't. I don't, all right? We learn more and more every day. Okay, so that's enough of my jibber jabber. Let's go on over here to this meditation book with the last 15 minutes we got. Okay, so we stopped at the state of dullness on page 119, and we were going through the three states of consciousness. Okay, so I'm gonna just pick the story back up. When Hetheru is given the drugged beer, she was immersed in a state of consciousness characterized by a deep stupor. This is the state of mind wherein there is such degradation that the personality expresses ignorance, negativity, animosity, grief, hatred, etc., which previously which had previously been in a dormant state. Ra decreed that she should be given the potion because she was so deluded that she would not respond to any form of persuasion based on the reason or relation of kinship. Remember, so this is giving us more details of the story. Remember, it gave us the fairy tale, we'll call it a fairy tale, of Ra sending his daughter out to do a certain thing, right? And when she turned into this beast to accomplish the plan, she forgot who she was, right? And that she was literally there on a mission to handle this. And she forgot who she was, and she thought she was this. So he had to send Jehudi out to had to kind of trick her at first until he got her attention to where he could begin to remind her of who she really was, so she could come out of the deluded state, right? And return as a daughter of Ra, or a daughter of God, however you want to say it. Listen. Ra decreed that she should be given the potion because she was so deluded that she would not respond to any form of persuasion based on reason or relation of kinship. Have you ever tried to reason with a person who is in the throes of passion or anger? Have you tried to control yourself when in this state? In the distracted state, the mind is clouded and intelligent or reasoning ability is weakened. People often fall in with bad company and are influenced by peer pressure. In the dullness state, the delusion has deepened so far that there is a lashing out, a desire for destruction of the environment as well as self destruction. Hetheru had reached a state in which she will destroy anything which lies in her path. Thus, this state implies intensified anger and hatred, as well as laziness, sleepiness, inertness, idleness, indolence, indolence, shiftlessness, slothfulness, and sluggishness. Kind of like you see this play out real world, and in the real world, in relationships that go awry, right? And when somebody feels slighted, it's like there's like a thin line between love and hate, and it really is, because it goes from the throes of passion and ecstasy to, in a blink of an eye, to I'm going to kill you. And now you have murder suicides. Like, how do you murder somebody that you love like that? It's this is exactly what this story is talking about. We see this all the time on the news, right? Let me read it again. Let me just go back up. I'm going to start it over. When Hetheru is given the drugged beer, she was immersed in a state of consciousness characterized by a deep stupor. This is a state of mind wherein there is such degradation that the personality expresses ignorance, negativity, animosity, grief, hatred, etc., which had previously been in a dormant state. Ra decreed that she should be given the potion because she was so deluded that she would not respond to any form of persuasion based on reason or relation of kinship. Have you ever tried to reason with a person who is in the throes of passion or anger? Have you tried to control yourself when in this state? In the distracted state, the mind is clouded and the intellect or reasoning ability is weakened, people often fall in with bad company and are influenced by peer pressure. In the dullness state, the delusion has deepened so far that there is a lashing out, a desire for destruction of the environment as well as self-destruction, like murder, suicide. I can't have you, ain't nobody gonna have you. I'm gonna kill you, your mama, and everybody in the house when I show up, then I'm gonna take my own self out. Right? It's a lashing out, destruction of everything in sight, and then self-destruction. Jan Grand arising. People often fall in with bad company and are influenced by peer pressure. In the dullness state, the delusion has deepened so far that there is a lashing out, a desire for destruction of the environment as well as self-destruction. Hetheru has reached a state in which she would destroy anything which lies in her path, right? Or everybody needs to die. Thus, this state implies intensified anger and hatred, as well as laziness, sleepiness, inertness, idleness, indolence, shiftlessness, slothfulness, and sleep. If they don't do the murder suicide, then they do the absolute opposite on the pendulum and they go into a depression, right? And they sleeping all day. Can't get them to do anything, right? Their mind is clouded with the lies. Whatever your mind believes, your body will follow. So when you see people in that state, you can automatically know that there's something going on here that they have taken in as truth, and their body is simply reacting. Their body is simply doing what it was designed to do, right? So you got to get control of this. You got to get control of their mental faculty, and you got to clear all that out. Otherwise, the body is just going to do what it was designed to do. It's either going to lash out or it's going to soak in misery and do nothing. And both ways you go to the grave, right? One is a little bit faster. You're going by bullet or knife or whatever, fire, whatever the rage takes you to, pushing off of buildings or whatever. Or you're going to go to the grave just at a slower pace by denying yourself everything and closing yourself off from the world until literally you die, right? And that even could end in suicide because you think things have just gotten so bad, right? It's all an illusion of the mind, and you have to be aware of it. when consciousness when consciousness sinks into deep dullness, look, I didn't even read ahead. Listen. When consciousness sinks into deep dullness, people may commit murder and or enter into conflicts which could be life-threatening because they are compelled by their emotions and desires. They will consume substances which are poisonous, such as cigarettes, drugs, or meat, even though they may find out that these substances are destroying their body and mind. They will indulge in sensual pleasures, anything that gives physical pleasure, and will become extremely angry if anything comes in the way of their satisfying their perceived desires. They will become violent with the slightest provocation. Sometimes the movement towards destruction is directed inward. This leads to self inflicted injuries, insipidity, lassitude, and deep depression. And I didn't even read ahead. When the degradation becomes severe, people can commit the most heinous acts of violence and crimes of the most extreme, shocking, and reprehensible nature. Others may become incapacitated due to inner negativity to such a degree that they can no longer sustain the practical realities of life. This leads to insanity, homelessness, suicide, etc. In Indian mysticism, this state of consciousness is called tamas. Tamas. The state of lucidity, harmony, purity, and balance. Quote, verse 26, I have not stopped my ears against the word of right and wrong. End quote. From the ancient Egyptian book of Coming Forth by Day. When Hetheru met with Jehudi, a new form of awareness began to develop in her heart. At first, she desired to kill and eat him. However, his beguiling charm and eloquence caught her interest. She spared his life and began to listen to him. In doing so, she was opening the door to expansion in consciousness. Most human beings are caught between the first two stages of consciousness at one time or another. There is a mixture of distraction, movement, and dullness. In this state, a human being does not want to sit still in order to listen to spiritual discourse about the nature of the soul and about the method to attain spiritual enlightenment. And if forced to do so, the mind falls into a state of dullness and he or she falls asleep, a state of extreme dullness. Yeah. Okay, let me read it again. There is a mixture. Hold on. Most human beings are caught between the first two stages of consciousness at one time or another. There is a mixture of distraction, movement, and dullness. In this state, a human being does not want to sit still in order to listen to spiritual discourse about the nature of the soul and about the method to attain spiritual enlightenment. And if forced to do so, the mind falls into a state of dullness and he or she falls asleep, a state of extreme dullness. We shucks, we familiar with this. When people that go to church fall asleep, right? Or if something really good is coming across, you got people that's really just not in tune and really don't want to learn, they falling asleep. Same thing happened in schools, right? When you are out of tune, you ain't trying to pay attention to your teacher, you just waiting for the school day to be over, you falling asleep, you scrolling on your phone, your mind can't handle it, right? It is only the stress of egoistic desires, which is suppressing that which is positive, true, and good within the human heart. I read that again. It is only the stress of egotistic desires, which is suppressing that which is positive, true, and good within the human heart. In some brief and rare occasions, there is an experience of peace, balance, contentment, and tranquility. Many times, these feelings are experienced for a brief period of time after an object of desire is acquired or a situation which one desires comes true. These experiences are only glimpses of the totality of happiness and peace which is in the heart. However, in order to discover this, the body, mind, and senses must reach a state of balance, harmony, and peace. This is possible through the practices of yoga, which is listening, reflecting upon, living in accordance with, and meditating upon the teachings, practicing the teachings of Ma'at. And what is Ma'at? Ma'at is simply the law of balance, right? It's balance, righteousness, justice. You live ma'at, right? You live a balanced, wholesome, peaceful, righteous life, right? When yoga is practiced, a purifying movement wherein the ignorance, delusion, restlessness, anger, anxiety, hatred, greed, lust, egoism, selfishness, and vices such as pride, covetousness, lust, anger, envy, gluttony, and sloth within the heart are cleansed. Therefore, Jehudi represents the light of reasoning and intuitional understanding about the innermost reality within the heart. Jehudi is the sage who is sent by God to find the wayward child, the soul, to impart wisdom, which leads to illumination of the heart and inner discovery of truth. This principle is so pervasive in human culture that it has found expression in the initiatic way of education as practiced first in ancient times in the ancient Egyptian temples and later in the Indian Upanishads and epic myths of Krishna and Rama, and much later in the Christian baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist. These stories have one factor in common. It is the relationship of the sage with the disciple, wherein spiritual knowledge is departed. The myth of Hetheru and Jehudi is similar to other important initiatic myths of ancient Egyptian, the Osirian resurrection, in which the young child Heru is taught about the mysteries of the soul and the universe by his mother and spiritual preceptor, teacher, Aset. In modern times, this tradition of the spiritual preceptor aspirant relationship has been continued through the gurus of Indian yoga and the Sufi gurus of the Near East and in Egypt. In popular culture, this teaching has found expression through popular films such as the Star Wars trilogy and The Lion King. And at The Lion King, it has reference number 20, which says, see the book of initiation into Egyptian yoga, The Secrets of Shetty by Muwada Ashby. Yeah. Whew. Trying to find a good place to pause. Oh, this is so good. Oh, let me see. Okay, I think we'll stop right here after this. Right here. Okay. We'll be done in like 3 minutes. Okay. In popular culture, this teaching has found expression through popular films such as the Star Wars trilogy and The Lion King. However, before spiritual aspirant must have aspiration. This implies a desire to go beyond the pettiness and sorrow of ordinary human existence, as well as the maturity to accept responsibility for one's condition. This means that there can be no blaming of others for one's troubles. It is one's own Ari, which has led to one's present conditions, good or bad. Conversely, it is one's present self effort in the area of Shetty or spiritual practice. Shetty means spiritual practice. Conversely, let me just go back. It is one's own Ari which has led one to one's present conditions, good or bad. Conversely, it is one's present self effort in the area of Shetty, spiritual practice, which can lead one out of adversary and into spiritual as well as material prosperity. And this is the last paragraph right here, y'all. Lucidity implies reason, clarity, wit, sanity, soundness, saneness. It also implies righteousness, truthfulness, universal love, harmony, peace, and selflessness. Therefore, in order to develop lucidity, a spiritual aspirant needs to practice these virtues in everyday life, while at the same time studying the teachings at the feet of authentic spiritual preceptors, and in parentheses after preceptors is sages and saints. When a positive spiritual movement is engendered, there is greater and greater awareness of the deeper spiritual reality culminating. Hold on, I just read that wrong. Hold on. What? The ears are throwing me off. Okay. When a positive spiritual movement is engendered, there is greater and greater awareness of the deeper spiritual reality culminating is self-discovery. What? The ears is throwing me off. When a positive spiritual movement is engendered, there is greater and greater awareness of the deeper spiritual reality culminating is self-discovery. Oh, that's gonna pluck my nerves all day, but I'm gonna move on. This is symbolized by Hetheru's discovery of her true essential nature as one with Ra. Ra being representing the great spirit, right? The great, the all, like Yah, the one and only source, right? That's what Ra represents in all the stories. This is symbolized by Hetheru's discovery of her true essential nature as one with Ra, the supreme being, and thus assuming her rightful place. Most human beings think their rightful place is as a member of some social, ethnic, or political group, etc. In reality, this is only an evasive and minuscule expression of the totality of who they really are. It is like the sun expressing as a reflection in a pool of water, falling into a delusion, thinking, I am this little reflection, and forgetting its true identity. Oh, that was good. I'm going to read that again. In reality, this is only an evasive and minuscule expression of the totality of who they really are. It is like the sun expressing as a reflection in a pool of water and falling into a delusion and thinking, I am this little reflection, and forgetting its true identity. So too, every human being has forgotten his or her true identity. However, through the compassion and love of the self, God, the message of truth which leads to spiritual enlightenment, a return home, as it were, is brought by the genuine spiritual personalities who have emerged as great teachers throughout history. Their spiritual enlightenment, contact with the self or with the true you, the self, your spirit, the true portion of you who is truly like Yah, when we connect the body and the soul to the spirit, bruh, listen. However, through the compassion and love of self God, this one is shit. Hold on. Hey, son, it's our oldest baby. What's up with you, bro? You are? You off today? No. What's wrong? I just had to bring my stuff past here. We still in the van. My clothes. What's up, brother? Oh, okay. So that's your mom's job? Nah, it's my clothes. I forgot to take them. Oh, I got your you coming back today? Yeah. Okay, I got your folder with your stuff that I printed out. Okay. All right, let me finish. This got like 2 sentences. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. Where you at? Was you the beach? Yeah. I'll call you, man, once we got them. However, through the compassion and love of the self, God, the message of truth, which leads to spiritual enlightenment, a return home, as it were, is brought by the genuine spiritual personalities who have emerged as great teachers throughout history. Their spiritual enlightenment or contact with the self allows them to transmit the teachings of the self for all who wish to find true peace and happiness. Thus, their discourses and writings on the self, spiritual scripture, are to be considered as authoritative sources for spiritual enlightenment and should be sought after and studied. This is so good. We'll pause right here. Yo, I thought, look, when I read that part, Amanda, an ocean that thought it was a wave, I thought about you, right? The sun that thought it forgot who it was and thought it was a reflection. When you forgot, you are the mighty sun, right? I thought about you because your comment the other day when we actually read about the ocean that thought it was a wave. It forgot it was the ocean and thought it was a wave, right? Remember who you are. Wake up, beautiful people. We are the shining sun. We are the ocean. Okay. This is so good. Listen, I want to share something with y'all. Look, I want to share something with y'all that I was up. I say I got up at like 5 something and couldn't go back to sleep because all night before I went to sleep, I come across this new source, right? At first, somebody had mentioned it was called the it's right there. The not the raw interview. I'm gonna share it, right? There's this series or there was there was this interview, let's just say interview that was done, right? And it was recorded while someone was, let's just say, in a spiritual trance, right? And they began to record everything that this particular person was saying. So when I came across this now before, if you had come to me a few years ago, simply the name would have thrown me off. It's called I gotta say what it is. I'm gonna share it with you. The Raw something. But anyway, there's a 5-book volume with this entire interview of what happened and everything that was spoken as they was speaking with the entity and everything. I was like, well, this is kind of interesting, right? Because a lot of what they're saying, of course, I'm like, all right, Father, if this is, keep me safe, some of my Christianity red flags popping up, right? I'm like, all right, Father, but if this is something that I need to look at. And then my sister sent me a little video clip. And so when I looked at it, I noticed he mentioned a book. And so when I looked up this book, it led me to that reference again. I was like, I've got to look this up. So I looked it up on Amazon. I found it. And so I was like, okay, so it's like 5 books. You can download it. It's not on Audible. You have to order the paper book, the paperback, or like the first volume is on Kindle, but somebody did like a remake of it and they have like the whole thing. But yeah, Robin, sis, like you be on it. Yes, Rob, Book of One. You know what I was talking about? So listen, the book Rob, Book of One, right? But here's what I found last night. So I ordered the little volume series, and it'll be here Saturday. Yo, look. So I was like, well, let me see if somebody like me is on YouTube that's reading it to everybody. And lo and behold, it was recorded and somebody uploaded it. Now, they've broken it up. Now, before you hop off here and go trying to pull it up, listen, I'm going to share it with you. You're going to have a little bit of patience listening to it, right? Because the instrument that was being used, and they called the woman instrument, it gave me so much clarity on how we look at ourselves and all my current studying of the body and all the stuff that I've been posting about the body and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, this is like the next level of education of what I'm learning about the body as they begin to talk about the body. And they say, you don't even, they call our bodies an instrument, right? They say, you don't even know what your instrument is really used from, just kind of summing it up. And so I'm like, I started dozing off because my body was tired and hit myself in the head with the phone a few times. And then I got back up this morning, like 5 something, couldn't go back to sleep because I cut this thing back on. Now, when I say you're going to have, they have they have a website where you can download the whole series. Okay, so I'm going to find that and I'm going to post that too. But if you listen to the Audible, well, on the original recordings on YouTube, when the instrument or the woman is talking, and it didn't seem crazy to me because in prophecy it happens, and it's happened through me. When the spirit of Yah want to speak through you, that happens. So all of that was engaged with this woman, right? And the entity, and it wasn't an entity, it was like a group of entity, and like when they switched or whatever, it would tell you it switched. But they said for the instrument, and they told you what the body needed in order to sustain the power or the flow or the connection to the spiritual realm like that. And it's just different things. And based on what the instrument of the current person's belief set was, and this woman just happened to be a Bible believing person, and her instrument of authority was the Bible, right? So that what they say, you can have it there because it helps to relax the instrument. And the whole, guys, is so good. And I'm already on like the 5th video, and they're like an hour long. If you take out all the spaces in between they would be condensed, and they'd be maybe like 20 or 30 minutes. But with it, I like it because on YouTube, while she's speaking, because she's speaking really slow, like it's like she listening for a word and she'll speak it. And sometimes she give paragraphs. So what they did while she's speaking is the whole of what she said, they'll post on the screen. It's in screenshot. And so what I began to do is, as it got to the next clip, I just kind of read it like I was reading a book, and I just kind of fast forwarded. So the hour-long videos took me about 20 minutes to get through because I just, instead of listening to her, and I did stop at times just to kind of hear the emotion, but there was not really an emotion. There was just like a constant flow of information. It seemed like somebody was kind of like doing Morse code on one side, trying to get the information through, and the person as they was hearing it. And I noticed to be true when you, especially when you start fasting and you eat fruits and veggies and stuff, what you hear in the spiritual realm can flow through you a lot more easily because you have become an instrument that's available at that time, and it's at a level of purity where the information can flow. Y'all, when I say this is mind blowing me, this is mind blowing me. Y'all have got to listen to this if you get a chance. And I'm like, this has got to be added to our reading because they took it all and they put it in book form. So uh, until we get to it, y'all go download it, go to YouTube, listen to it for free. Just, if you ain't got the patience to sit and listen to every word every couple seconds, just read it. It is all there. So I'm gonna share that. But that is super amazing. And just my understanding of the body, our instrument that our spirit has, it's just going to another whole level. Just rip it open, babe. Going to another whole level in these last few hours of coming across this information. I'm like, bruh. And then they started talking about the pyramids and what I had already started uncovering about the pyramids and how they're ascension chambers and healing chambers and stuff. And it is amazing. They said the pyramids still work, although they said it's like a thing of the past because of how they want us to evolve, the human race, how we are to just continue to evolve better, to become more in line with the spiritual realm so the two realms can merge back into one. It's like that's what they use at the beginning because of where the earth was currently at that civilization. And they said they still work, but there's not too many people. They said, matter of fact, the ones that are using it for the wrong purposes, and it's not out of purity, right? And everything that was flowing through, they say everything must be done out of love because everything is connected. Like we are all connected. And if you understand that, like I am you and you are me, you're not going to do anything that's going to inflict harm on yourself. So I inflict harm on you. I'm really inflicting harm on myself, right? Love others as you love yourself, right? So but all of that is in there. And they said um even today what was done with the pyramids, and they even tell you how it was constructed, right? Because they was asking, they allowed you to the people who were recording, they allowed them to ask questions, right? And so of course that was like one of the first things they got to was how did the pyramids get built, and they explained to them exactly how they were built, right? With thought form. They said the first one's the Great Pyramids, or what we call here in our language on the earth, the pyramids of Giza, the Great Pyramids, because we call things differently from what the other realm refers to things. Even as we refer to ourselves as people, they don't even refer to us as people. They literally look at us as the frequency of sound and what we really are as being bonded together by the elements that are here. He said, but you refer to yourselves as people, but this is how we see you and your sound frequencies. That's why, when I was learning about the frequencies and the sound and how music affects our bodies, because we are truly really frequencies, guys. You're going to get another whole like education listening to this, especially if you've already been doing a lot of research. I wouldn't say this is something for people who are just waking up. So if you're just waking up but you're curious, go ahead, especially if you're on the path to truth. Take in what you can take in. If not, just don't chuck it. Just put it to the side until you learn, until you grow a little bit more. Just like my 5-year-old can't drive right now, but you'll be able to drive in quite a few years, right? You can do it, just not now. Same thing with growth and some of the information. Some things you may be able to handle now. Some things you can't. You may just be at the stage where you need milk, right? You can't eat solid foods at this point because you haven't developed your teeth yet. So some of us here still need to develop teeth before we can ingest some of the higher truths and learning and stuff. So, but for those of y'all that are ready, dive in. I'm gonna share it with y'all. With that being said, y'all, we about to get out of here. It is Friday. It is Friday. We said we got things to do. I know, Dave. I'm coming. I get super excited about this. I be trying to share everything with y'all like every day. Okay, it is Friday, May the 13th, 20 22, day 107 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1125. Today we read the Oahspe, and we started on page 84. I always forget to put my ending page, and we paused on page 90. And then we read meditation, started on page 119, and we paused on page 121. Right. I like to say the beginning and end the pages just in case somebody come in late or whatever, and they just need the page numbers real quick so they can go back. All right, y'all. So with that being said, thank y'all for hanging out. May y'all bless you all. Come on, Tootie. May y'all continue to bless you in your growth on a daily basis. And as the information and enlightenment comes to your soul and your spirit, may you have the courage to change, even if you are surrounded by a whole bunch of people who are unwilling and refuse to change, right? Step out there, right? All the spiritual realm walks with you. There are more that are with us than those that be against us, right? Just keep on growing, y'all. Keep on growing in the love and light of our great creator, Yahuwah. I love y'all. I see y'all. Oh, look, I started getting on some of that, Robin. I know I'm about to end this. Said they did studies that verify sound frequency. You're absolutely right. We talked about that a little bit. They did studies that verify that sound frequencies can change DNA and heal the body. Yes, they get into that a little bit too, right? All right, y'all. That's it. I love y'all. We out of here. See y'all back here tomorrow, 7:30, because it's the weekend, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace. So you need some lip gloss.
Yeah. Mom, guess what?
What's it?
Yesterday, I passed on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed down.
Yep. All right. Go ahead and end YouTube, girl. Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh. Look like she be eating powdered donuts. She's like, don't do me. All right, hit in. Bye, y'all. Peace.